Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. I am Richard Ransom, and we're here every Sunday to give you the real story behind the big stories. And there's one really big story this week. I'm talking, of course, about the Memphis municipal election, starting with the Memphis mayor's race. Incumbent Jim Strickland winning in a landslide, his margin of victory more than 2-1 over his next opponent. What does this mean for the next 4 years? We'll also take a look at other races and the sales tax hike referendum that came to be known as the public safety referendum. Police and firefighters worked hard for this one, and it paid off. We'll also talk about the Trump impeachment investigation. Tennessee lawmakers now being drawn into the controversy, namely a fellow conservative, Lamar Alexander. But first, let me introduce my panel today. Local 24 News political analyst Otis Sanford is here, as is political analyst and consultant Susan Adler-Thorpe with Thorpe Communications. Thank you both for being here. I want to start with newly re-elected Mayor Jim Strickland. Local 24 News reporter Brad Broders snagged the first one-on-one TV interview with the mayor right after he gave his victory speech, and I want you both to watch this, and we'll talk about the mayor's comments on the other side.
I'm Local 24 News reporter Brad Broders. We are joined by a very special guest, soundly re-elected and win Mayor Jim Strickland. Congratulations. What do you think put you over the top tonight?
I think, frankly, we've done a good job in the last 3.5 years, and Memphis truly does have momentum. 24,000 more people working, billions in development. We're hiring more police officers. We're doing more for young people. We're doing exactly what the people want. And I knew the overwhelming number of Memphians wanted us to go in that direction, and they voted that way tonight.
Now that you have a second term, it's going to be official. What are some specific real top priorities you hope to get installed now that you officially are going to have a second term?
Well, one of them is we've got to keep hiring more police officers. You know, we're going to probably go over 2,100 officers in November when we had dropped down to close to 1,900. Next year, we want about 2,300 officers, so we got to really pick up the pace. And after that, we need 24, 25, 2,600 officers. We're going to study and figure out exactly how many, but we need hundreds more. So we can't let up in that regard. We got to keep hiring more police officers.
And in terms of economic development, jobs, working with the state, federal level, what are some of the new things you hope to put in place?
Well, I don't know if there's anything new on economic development, but we've got to take a better advantage of the free workforce development that the state has given us in free community college and tech school. We're the only state in the country. And if we can train up our workforce, if we can have a skilled workforce, the jobs will come not only from current companies continuing to grow and expand, but bringing in new companies. Every city across the country is fighting hard for a skilled workforce. The state has given us a gift. We got to take better advantage of it.
Now, one of the challenges for you and your predecessors is the poverty rate. How do you hope second term you can bring that number up stronger?
Well, obviously, more jobs helps, but we also have to increase that literacy rate. Only 25% of our third graders read at third grade level. That's why the universal pre-K that we're kicking in next year is really important. Again, if it was 75% of our third graders could read at third grade level, poverty and crime and all these challenges we have would just disappear because our young people would have the tools to take advantage of the opportunities we have. So we really got to continue to focus on early childhood literacy.
Now, what it appears the public safety referendum may pass. So there's some concern about how this is going to all play out. Assuming this happens, what's your kind of preliminary thoughts on it?
Well, I promised that we would enforce it. We would abide by the people's will, and if it passes, we will implement it. I can't give you the step-by-step on how that would happen, but I do know that we're going to rebid our health insurance next year, so we just include that in it. I don't really know off the top of my head when the sales tax actually goes up. I don't know if it's January 1 or the end of this month. So I don't know those details, but we will implement it and do what the people voted for.
Are you concerned the county's going to want their share, and that's going to be maybe a fight for another day potentially?
Yeah, as you know, the law allows the county to take half of that sales tax, which would be a challenge for us because we couldn't fully implement what the voters wanted if the county does take half of it. So we'll just have to work with county officials and try to prevent that from happening.
Now that the partnership you have with the state legislature or the Congress, what how do you see that relationship growing and benefiting Memphis in your second term?
Well, I'm really happy that we had several elected officials in the audience, state representative, Congress, and we continue to try to build relationships. Politics and human nature is a lot of just relationships, and the more that we build trust at the state capitol, the more that we can benefit from it. And I think we've made real inroads up in Nashville and in Washington, and we will continue to build on those relationships.
It appears you're going to have at least 60% of the vote. Do you see that as a mandate? And if so, how will that guide you moving forward?
Well, there's no doubt it's a mandate. It's higher than anybody predicted, and it is truly overwhelming and a mandate. I think we're just going to follow what we in the first term, we executed, we did what we said we were going to do. We're going to do the second term too. Now, I will say one thing I'd like to do different in the second term is we've got to clean up the city. There is just too much litter all around this city, and we didn't have the funds to do it first term. We got to figure out how to fund that.
If your second term's a success, you're 8 years in office, you're early, 2024, you're leaving office, what are some of the things you would like to see and you'd be like, that was a long-term success, I made a long-term impact on the city?
Well, obviously, we want to see the crime and poverty numbers go in the right direction. I'd love to see transit vision that we came up with at city government to really blossom, meaning to have a good operating Memphis Area Transit Authority, so that the 15% or so of the public that doesn't have regular access to a vehicle can get to the thousands of jobs that are available now, or the free workforce development. So I tell people, even if you would never ride the bus, you want a better bus system.
Mayor Strickland, he sails to a re-election win, more than 60% of the vote. He begins the second term in early 2020, and he'll have another 4 years to finish out that vision for a second term. For now, I'm live with the re-elect Mayor Jim Strickland of Memphis. I'm Brad Broders for Local 24 News This Week.
All right, thank you, Brad. Interesting interview there as he looks ahead to the next 4 years. There is a phrase in politics called political capital, and you have a lot of it when you win by 62% of the vote. Did you hear in that interview a mayor who plans to expend some of that political capital to do something bold and visionary for the city?
I don't know that I saw anything really bold. I saw a continuation of what he has been doing. He has been trying to increase the police force. The attrition sort of made those numbers not be as robust as they should. I think we only had a net of 28 officers, but if he had not been out there and if the department had not been out there recruiting, we would have a whole lot less. So, but I didn't hear anything bold. I do think his biggest challenge is going to be that poverty issue, though. The numbers just came out. The poverty rate inched back up about almost 3 percentage points, and all of that feeds into the other problems that we have, crime and lack of educational attainment. So that is something that I think he really needs to work on, and I think he talked about that workforce investment as being a part of that.
Oh, well, Ryan Poe, the columnist for the Commercial Appeal, had an excellent piece on Friday about his thinking as to why Strickland did so well, and he pointed out that Strickland worked for it. He wanted it. He went to more black churches than I think the other two combined. He knocked on more doors, and you know, it's also something you can count on in politics, that he or she who works the hardest usually wins, whoever wants it the most. Would you agree that he wanted it the most?
There's no question. He very much wanted to be reelected. It's not just how much shoe leather you put to the pavement, Richard. It's also how much money you have in the bank.
Sure.
And Jim Strickland had raised probably over $1 million, spent a good portion of that, and his opponents didn't. I don't think either one probably cracked 100,000. So I think that accounted for a lot too. But I want to go back to your question that you asked Otis about any great vision. I think there is a couple of things there. Strickland has been working a long time to implement pre-K, and even though that's not, we won't classify it as visionary, we would classify it as extremely necessary. But it was visionary at one time when he was on the council, and he started thinking about this and talking about this and trying to get it to move forward. He also wants to give us a better bus system. That, to me, that transit vision is visionary, because you can have all the jobs in the world, but if you can't move your workforce from point A to point B to capitalize on those jobs, there's no use for it either. So, and I think he's going to continue building on the Renaissance that we have downtown, the more development. I think it's kind of exciting that for the first time that I can remember, we see cranes around downtown, and more than one. So I think that he has a real opportunity in the next 4 years, and when he says that he's going to continue to build on what he has done and implement a few more things, I think we can believe that.
Well, and back to your second question about the Capitol, he has built great relationships in every corner of the city.
He won a plurality of black and white votes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It wasn't really even close. I mean, I'm looking to dig deeper into those numbers, and I will. But everybody is comfortable with Jim Strickland. You know, every now and then, Norm Brewer used to call them transformational candidates who come along, who can appeal to everybody, who can work with everybody, who is comfortable around everybody. Jim Strickland is that guy. You know, he is just as comfortable in an East Memphis setting as he is in an Orange Mound setting. And I think relationships like that can help him to succeed and maybe get some of these things done. The relationships he has with the council, with the legislature, especially ones from Memphis, I don't know about the rest of them, and with the county commission, I think that he is in a great position to do some of those things, Susan. We'll just have to wait and see if he can accomplish some of those.
Well, I want to talk more about results from the mayor's race, but some of the other races too, including that referendum. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment, every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
Cigna knows you're more than just a number. That's why Cigna Medicare Advantage treats you like a whole person, body and mind, for a cost that makes sense for you. Start enjoying more coverage for less. Call 1-855-738-0423. With Cigna, you get medical, dental, vision, and prescriptions in one plan. A team of doctors for your overall health, and healthy living programs to save you money. Plus, no monthly premium and only a $5 specialist copay. Medicare annual enrollment is now. Make sure you have the right plan for the right price. Call now to get your free Medicare Advantage guide and learn how to get a complete plan that fits your budget. Call 1-855-738-0423. That's 1-855-738-0423. Or visit GetCignaMedicare.com. Cigna, together all the way.
There's power in working together. So let's rise up and choose to see our similarities. Let's be bold and appreciate the things that make us unique. Let's use our voices to put an end to bullying and cyberbullying forever. And on Monday, October 7th, let's all stand up for World Day of Bullying Prevention by rocking a blue shirt. Together, we can make bullying a thing of the past. Get your blue shirt at stompoutbullying.org.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Before we move off the mayor's race, let's put up the results from Thursday night. You can see Strickland with 62%, Willie Harrington with 29%, and Tammy Sawyer with 7%. You know, Willie Harrington said he wasn't used to losing mayoral elections. But he took it pretty graciously, I thought. Tammy Sawyer indicated that, you know, there's another one in 4 years. She brought that up, indicating she's keeping her eye on a possible run again. She certainly got her name out there with this campaign. Do you expect that she will give it another try?
Oh, I think she will give it another try, but she has some repair work to do here. Her campaign imploded, really.
Well, she blamed that there wasn't a debate, and she, you know, but the candidate has to look within too a little bit.
Well, that's true. I mean, yeah, I mean, it would have been great if there had been a debate. We wanted a debate, but she cannot put this loss on just not having a debate. She was out there talking. I don't think that that's what happened here at all. No. Again, she has a lot of work to do, and 4 years from now, you know, she will be going up against, if she wants to run for mayor, she will likely be going up against people like Van Turner and some others who are also, they're not just sitting around doing nothing. They will be building some credibility and some relationships. And remember, Van Turner supported Jim Strickland. So 4 years from now, what do you think Jim Strickland's going to do?
Yeah, but remember, 3 years from now, she has to decide that she wants to run for her commission seat.
This is true.
And so that's a lot of politicking between now and then. And, you know, she really, she imploded on herself.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to, not only does she have a lot of apologies to make in the community, but she has to rebuild her reputation, and that's going to be very hard to do, because if she gets any halfway astute opponent in any election, they're going to bring up her Twitter. And let me say something about tweeting, Twitter. As much as social media was a friend to Tammy Sawyer from the beginning, where she got a lot of her support and people began to know her, it also became her enemy. By not, even if she regretted making those tweets 10 years ago, she wasn't savvy enough to erase them or try to get them down from cyberspace, and people found them. So she, it's going to be very, very difficult for her to emerge, honestly, as a winner again in politics in the near future.
Let's look at the referendum results, because Otis, you and I were here last week saying we didn't think it was going to pass. I think you could said the same thing, but guess what? Voters had the last laugh on this one. 52% voted for the sales tax referendum to restore police and fire, health and pension benefits. We know that Chairman Kim Conrad, County Commissioner Edmund Ford Jr., among those saying the city cannot afford this, but the mayor, we also heard him just say, we're going to implement it because that's what the voters want. Where do you think this goes?
Well, go ahead, Susan. No,
well, you know, I have to say I was really surprised. I didn't think it would pass. But now that it did, I think, first of all, if the county comes after its 50%, that's that much less we have to support.
Well, the mayor, just now, the city mayor made it sound like, yeah, they're entitled to have.
Right?
He doesn't really dispute it.
Right.
And plus, in fact, we have maxed out on our sales tax.
We have. And,
you know, and the cost, and what the economists, people are saying is the cost of health care is going to keep going up and up and up. And that half-cent sales tax increase, 50% of it is going to stay the same. And hopefully it'll grow a little bit if the community grows too. So I think another problem that we have because of it is that where is the city going to get money? If the city wants to improve, let's say, MATA and the bus system, which is a priority for Mayor Strickland, where's the money going to come from? It has always been floated maybe another sales tax increase. That's not going to happen.
Here's what I think happens. I think the county will get half the money, $27 million. That comes awfully close to the $30 million MATA says it needs to, you know, do some serious reforms to the bus system.
Right. Well, that's absolutely true. The referendum passed because the police and firefighters worked very hard to get it to pass. And there was really nobody out there working against it, despite what Kim Conrad and Edmund Ford Jr. were doing. But now comes the real work of how do we implement this. It is not going to be easy. I think it's going to be probably the toughest thing that the administration is going to have to do going forward. And so we don't know where we stand.
Well, and let me say one other thing about sales tax increase. And I'm not going to argue with our first responders and their need for this additional money for their benefits. But a sales tax is the most regressive tax we can have. And we are a community, we're not a very wealthy community. Right. We have a high level of poverty. And the people that can least afford it are the ones who are going to have to support this sales tax increase for the benefits of police and fire. It's going to be very difficult and very controversial, but the mayor has an issue on his hand. He's going to have to implement it.
Let's talk about new blood. And there wasn't much of it. And you look at the results, lots of incumbents won, lots of familiar names. But there was one candidate, Super District 8, Position 1, J.B. Smiley, local attorney, who won in that race over Jerry Curry. And I think we're going to hear more from this guy, yes?
Yes, I think so. I mean, he's a relatively young, smart guy. He had been on the ballot before. And Jerry Curry had not been on the ballot before. She was appointed to the District 6 position, got out of that to run in the super district because she didn't want to go up against Edmund Ford Sr. because she thought she was going to lose, but then went over there. Nobody really knew who Jerry Curry was. And if you are not running with some familiarity in a city election, you start out at a disadvantage, and Smiley had some support from some well-known political people, and that's why he's going to the city council.
And Smiley absolutely out-campaigned her.
He sure did.
He talked about shoe leather and knowing how to campaign. He did it. She didn't have particularly good guidance from any political strategist. She didn't run a very good campaign.
Right.
And she lost.
Right.
And that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And it's not even a matter of money in this case.
I don't think so. This was retail politics.
He was everywhere campaigning.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting. He's another candidate who did not receive the endorsement of the People's Convention, which absolutely fell flat on its face when you look at how many candidates were endorsed who did not win.
Well, and even Mayor Harrington didn't get their endorsement, so.
Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, the People's Convention was just it's a nice exercise in grassroots activism, but that's all it was.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit. President Trump and the controversy surrounding him and how it's hitting one local politician pretty hard. We'll be right back.
Greater Memphis Chamber presents Memphians on the Move. Please join me as I explore the impacts of those people and companies who are driving economic growth and empowering a stronger workforce in Memphis. Sunday at 11 on Local 24.
They've stormed beaches and freed countries. They've raised our flag and our hope. They've been called leathernecks. They've been called devil dogs. But above all, they're called Marines.
America's veterans are more than a source of pride. They're a source of strength. When our veterans thrive, our communities thrive. With your support, our veterans can get career and education opportunities as well as benefits they've earned.
Hello, I'm Congressman David Kustoff. Join me in thanking our nation's veterans. They've given so much in service to our country. Find out how you can support veterans in our community.
This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
America's veterans are more than a source of pride. They're a source of strength. When our veterans thrive, our communities thrive. With your support, our veterans can get career and education opportunities as well as benefits they've earned.
I'm Senator Marsha Blackburn. Our veterans have given Tennessee so much, and it's time to do something for them. Find out how you can support them right in your community.
This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
You work out.
I'm going to start soon.
Next, Ellen, John Cena from the new Fast and the Furious. What are you playing? Can you tell us yet or no?
I cannot.
Okay, fine. Thanks for being here. That is John Cena, everybody.
Watch Ellen, Monday at 4 on Local 24.
You're watching Local 24 this week with Richard Ransom.
One more thing on the mayor's race. Susan Thorpe was at Houston's 40 hours before the election. And guess who else was at Houston's 40 hours before the election? You snapped this picture. Give us the background.
Well, I mean, I saw Mayor Harrington sitting at the bar, and I said, Mayor, the election's 40 hours from now. The polls open. Why are you in here not out campaigning? And he showed me his T-shirt, put his hat on, was eating a bowl of French fries, and he said, I'm campaigning, I'll be out of here shortly. So anyway, he was happy to pose for the picture. I want to say one thing about his candidacy. I think that he really had his heart in this race. I think he would have liked to have been mayor again, but I don't think he had a soul in this race. And if you want to win a race, you got to get into it with your heart and your soul. He didn't, and you know what? His years in office will be, half of them will be a good memory, and the other half, he'll just have to deal with unfinished business.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about what I told you about before the break there, and that is the pressure coming from a conservative watchdog group that's putting some pressure on Republicans over the growing controversy surrounding the impeachment investigation surrounding President Trump. This is an ad. It's $1 million buy that's going to be shown in all the TV markets in Tennessee, trying to apply, as I said, some pressure on U.S. Senator Lamar Alexander.
Senator Alexander, the country is in crisis. The President of the United States has requested foreign interference in American elections to benefit himself politically.
President Trump asked his Ukrainian counterpart to investigate his political foe, Joe Biden.
This is an abuse of power by the chief executive of our country. He won't stop unless Republicans like you stand up and say that it's wrong. Senator Alexander, your voice is critical. Stand up for the country and stand up for the rule of law.
Several Republican senators are being targeted with ads like the one we're seeing there for Lamar Alexander. We've only got a minute and a half left, but what impact do you think this has, Otis?
Well, I think it has a strong impact on just the overall issue. And I would, if I were Lamar Alexander, I would be listening to this. He's already retiring. What does he have to lose? His legacy is already built. He's always stood for trying to be a moderate, independent voice anyway. And it's absolutely clear, Richard, that there is abuse of power here. All of the evidence is coming out now. It is imperative that Lamar Alexander speak up.
Well, he was definitely targeted because he has always positioned himself, except for in the last year or two, as a moderate Republican. And so he was probably targeted by this group as one who could be flipped to stand up and criticize again and stand up and take a position against Donald Trump. So will it be effective? It depends. I think it depends on how much more we learn about what Trump has said and what Trump has done in the impeachment process. If it comes to a point where Lamar Alexander has to take a pick on whether first of all, we're not hearing from him now, so I think that speaks loudly. But secondly, he could flip if he wants to leave being known as the moderate that he was.
You hear a lot of Republican senators not saying much.
They're not saying much.
And it's gutless that they are not doing so.
So far, that's what we got, though. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm right here. Let's go.
Janet, right here.
You ready to catch some fish? Here we go. I'm right here.
Being here matters. So when it's time to choose a Medicare plan, know that thousands of us at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee are right by your side in the moments that matter. We can walk you through our all-in-one plans with no monthly premiums, no deductibles on medical or pharmacy, plus dental and vision coverage. We even provide a fitness membership at no extra cost and give you the freedom to choose your own doctors with no referrals required. Whether you're new to Medicare or just looking at your options, we'll offer the expertise that comes from serving Tennesseans for nearly 75 years and the care that comes from being a not-for-profit with a mission to serve.
And if you need anything else, we'll be right here.
To learn more, visit us online or call us at 888-610-9773.
Bullies prey on weaknesses. Dad used to always say, you don't have to fight every bully, but every bully needs to know you're willing to fight. We will fight for our clients. Do you understand? Let us be your voice.
You might know him from his political commentary or think of him as a voice of reason on many issues affecting Memphis. But you might not know the lighter side of our friend Otis Sanford. Thursday, October 24th is the Otis L. Sanford Roast and Toast, an evening of laughter and entertainment benefiting homeless and needy women and children. Hear stories, share memories, poke fun, and have a good time. To purchase tickets and for more information, go to herfaithministries.org. We'll see you there. To weigh in on today's show, the email address is rransom@localmemphis.com, rransom@localmemphis.com. My thanks to Otis and Susan for being here, and my thanks to you as well. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.